we should hear.
That's good.
Okay, we are recording. Okay, so we have today a new guest at our podcast. Her name is Monique Kuglitsch. I hope I pronounced it properly, Monique. So
perfect.
Apologies, but you can correct me.
Perfect.
So you work, of course, we will go into the details of your career, but you are currently based at Fraunhofer, and you are also chair of the new established global initiative on resilience to natural hazards using AI. So first question would be, what do you do? What is your job about? These two positions about? And then we can go through your past and all your career.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for your interest in my work. I'm at the Fraunhofer Institute for Telecommunications, Heinrich Hertz Institute. We call it HHI for short, in Berlin. So that's the building that's behind me. And this institute specializes in applied telecommunications research. So everything from AI machine learning to wireless communications, fiber optics, photonics, and everything in between. But I'm a geoscientist from background, which you'll hear more about later on, I guess. And my role as innovation manager is to find interesting ways that the telecommunication technologies that my colleagues are developing can be applied. So looking for opportunities to build partnerships, build consortia, find projects, and realize those projects. So this is sort of like the one hat that I wear. The other hat that I wear is in this global initiative. So Fraunhofer as a society is a sector member of a branch of the UN called the International Telecommunication Union, ITU for short.
Yeah.
And within this branch of the UN, they have the mandate to make standards. And when they would like to make standards for certain technologies being applied in certain domains, they have mechanisms. So one of these mechanisms is a focus group. And what we are now is a global initiative, which actually started off as a focus group, but then turned into this new initiative. Exactly.
Okay. So I have two questions. So first is this Fraunhofer Institute, do you have also teaching or it's mainly research?
Good question. So it's very interesting. I had actually never worked at an organization that was similarly structured to Fraunhofer. So some of the department heads, for instance, they also have a professorship. So they really bridge teaching at a local university with their research. And we definitely have PhD students that are working actively within the research groups at my institute. But we're not an academic institution. So there's always this link to like the Technical University of Berlin or Freie University or the other universities that are nearby.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I want to go back to the ITU initiative, but first you say you have a geology background. Do you have also Earth observation background, or it's something that started, you specialize later on?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, I mean, my background, I started off doing lake sediments and trying to reconstruct the past of what was happening in catchments. So, I mean, of course, we used remote sensing data in combination with the sediments because we needed to understand what processes were happening in the current environment to better understand, you know, how the situation had changed. And so for my master's, I studied lakes that were in northern Canada, so in the Yukon and in British Columbia, and we took, you know, 9-meter sediment cores and analyzed them and then tried to figure out what was happening now and what could have been happening in the past. And then for my PhD, I went to Switzerland. I was at the University of Bern, and I took what I'd been doing for my master's, but took it into the climate direction. So I still wanted to understand what was happening in a catchment, but I wanted to understand how that was reflecting global climate or global to regional climate processes. So we did late Holocene climate reconstructions using lake sediments.
And so you are originally from Canada, US?
No, US.
Yes, okay. The accent, I didn't want to say
I
anything
know it's
like.
tricky. I know. With the
Okay,
name
so
plus the accent, it's all very confusing.
so why this journey? Why from the US to Canada, then to Switzerland? Was I don't know. What was
Yeah,
the?
excellent question. So I grew up in Boston, and there's definitely great universities in the Boston area. But I also wanted to have a little adventure, and
Okay.
Canada has some really excellent universities. We also have a bit of a family tradition of going to Canada. So my dad grew up in Buffalo and went to Niagara University.
Okay.
My sister went to McGill. My brother went to University of Toronto. So we all kind of like
Okay.
migrated up, but I did
Okay.
spend a semester at Harvard during my studies and kind of, yeah, tried to spend time in both places. And then, so for my bachelor's, I was at Queen's University. And during my bachelor's, that's when I just really got interested in geosciences. And I had a really great professor who mentored me and helped me get to know some people that were working in the topic that I wanted to pursue at the University of Toronto. And then I went there for my master's. And then, in a sort of funny, like full circle, I ended up going to Bern for my PhD, which is where my mom is from originally. So,
Ah, no.
so yeah, it all kind of like it sounds
You are
crazy,
following.
but it kind
Okay.
of makes sense if you look at my family history. So,
And Germany, so there is no link with Germany,
so
family link.
Germany was actually my husband got a job at the German Geoscience Research Center in
Okay.
Potsdam, and
Okay.
so I followed him here. And yeah, we've made our home in Berlin and feel very happy here.
Um, just probably you will you have been asked a few times, but any difference, major difference with North America between North America and Europe? I don't know, positive or negative,
I mean,
or
how long do we have for this for this podcast?
just few, or one, just one.
Um, I mean,
Something you miss, or something you don't
yeah.
miss.
So I'm very like my person. I'm very nostalgic. So when I go to Switzerland, I like really I miss the
Okay.
mountains. When I come back to Berlin, I really miss the mountains and the chocolate. When I'm in the
Mm.
US, I miss the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. I miss the fish. I miss, of course, my family, my friendships there. Um, the way that people interact with each other, it's just different. My husband says well, he's I think they're kind of two extremes. They're very
Is he
stereotypical.
American, your
No, he's
husband?
Austrian. So he's
Ah,
sort of like the observer.
okay, 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 okay.
So, I mean, Berlin, there's this like stereotype. It's called the Berliner Schnauze, which is just kind of
Okay.
like this sense of humor that sometimes can come across as being a bit prickly, and you're not sure if they're being nice or mean, but
Eh,
yeah. And in the US, we have the stereotype of being like super friendly, but not, I mean, sometimes a bit superficial, sometimes a bit much. So it's kind of like the two extremes.
balance.
I
Yeah.
like both. I mean, I've found a way to adapt to both, but yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it looks like you enjoy now Germany, you
Absolutely. Love
settled.
it here.
Okay. And how, I don't know, how easy is to work with other academics in not just in Berlin, Germany in general, or Europe? I don't know what's the,
Yeah. So,
how do you find it?
I mean, I find it great. I mean, I think that especially because how connected things are in Europe and the number of meetings that are here that just like bring
Mm.
the researchers from different countries together, it's just, I don't feel like I'm in a bubble of working with German researchers. I feel like I'm working with researchers from Germany, from other countries all together, and there are a lot of opportunities to see each other and visit each other's labs just because, yeah, the countries are not so far from each other. When you're in the US,
Yeah.
the distances are bigger. So
Okay. Um, and you're also talking about collaboration because I remember you. I don't know if you are the PI, but definitely you are leading some of this Horizon call. I think I read somewhere. So how hard was to get it, and how hard it is to manage it? If you can tell us, yes, tell us more.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as I mentioned, I do wear these two hats, this sort of like research hat, trying to help find interesting opportunities that bridge our research. at Fraunhofer. And then I also wear this sort of like initiative hat. And the two roles are actually super complementary because through the initiative, I get to meet some really great people that are doing really interesting work. I also get to see where there are research gaps because I'm getting a really great cross section of what people are doing and where there could be, opportunities to sort of plug these gaps. So it's been like really fun working on these Horizon Europe calls, trying to take some of those challenges that we've identified as a group and try to address them, using these funding opportunities. And the Horizon Europe calls in principle are great just because you can work with so many experts in different countries. You can really pull across the region. We're even working with partners in Northern Africa for these projects. And so I wouldn't say that I'm leading any projects. I'm definitely not coordinating any projects, but I was involved in getting Medusa, building the consortia and the concept, which is a 3-year Horizon Europe project that's being coordinated by Jörg Luderbacher at the University of Gießen. This project is building a multi-hazard early warning system that's covering countries around the Mediterranean and using AI in different capacities. And then we have another project that just started in November that I also was involved in a supporting role, is called Artemis. This project is really looking at standards, but on the European level. So if you have a disaster that covers different borders and you need to have an international response, how do we develop protocols to sort of streamline that process?
Okay, so that's linked also to what you say is that the two roles you have, they are quite complementary and aligned. And yeah, how did they start this initiative at ITU about resilience to natural hazard?
So it actually started off as a focus group. So back in 2020, I had actually already been doing a little bit of work on another focus group that was doing standards for health. So this was a great way for me to get kind of my foot wet in the standards space, because coming from research and geosciences, it's a little bit like standards, how does that link? So did you want to ask something before I?
Yeah, just sorry, because I thought it's something, let's say, you plan and you have in your mind to propose, or was, I don't know, a chance it happened, like, yeah.
Yeah, I would say it happened. I would say it happened as chance. I mean, I joined Fraunhofer and I was not immediately working on geoscience topics. I was working on this health topic, AI, and standards. And after maybe 2 years of working on that, discussing with my boss, we decided, the experiences that I had acquired already working with the ITU, I could use to create another focus group that could be more relevant to my background and more closely related to my expertise. And so, having his support was really important, because when you start a focus group, it's really a full-time job. You need a lot of help also from your colleagues to get it off the ground. And so I basically, I was in a fortunate position that a good friend of mine, actually who I'd mentioned, the coordinator of the Medusa project at the time, was the chief scientist of the WMO. And so I learned quite quickly from him that there was also a lot of interest from the WMO to work on something like this. So we saw very clearly that there was a great opportunity for us to work together to create something that would be beneficial for the ITU as well as the WMO. And then I also had a colleague at UN Environment who was responsible for DRR, who also was interested. So we basically brought all 3 organizations together in this focus group. And that's how I met our mutual colleague, Lorenzo Nava, who helped us right from the beginning, getting it off the ground. We also worked with colleagues from NASA, from other organizations that are working on this topic. And over the course of 3 years, because we were basically given a 3-year term that we could finish our work, we really built a big network. And together we started developing technical reports, having workshops and webinars, creating capacity sharing and educational materials, and of course, getting these projects like Medusa off the ground. And then in 2024, our focus group lifetime ended, but we were really excited that our UN partners agreed that we should continue our work. The technology isn't stagnating in any way. So it's important that the standards evolve as well. And so during the AI for Good Summit in 2024, it was officially announced that we would transition into a global initiative. And since then, we continue to grow. We now have 6 UN partners and even more experts that are working with us. But what I want to mention is that we're all volunteers. So we don't have seed funding. We're all doing this in our free time, or if we're lucky, doing it in parallel to our other research or other work. So it's really like a labor of love, so to speak.
Can I ask just to be more specific, an example when you say standard, defining standards? Clear example if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our technical reports are actually public and they're on our homepage. I'm not sure if that can be shared with the podcast, but they're basically best practices that we as the community think people should observe when they use AI or when regulations or legislations are created around AI. And so we tried to take as systematic a process as possible. So the first thing that we did was we looked at the academic literature. What are people doing? Are we seeing trends? We looked at like what topics are emerging repeatedly, like data bias. Data bias just keeps coming up. How are people dealing with it? What seems to work? What doesn't seem to work? And then another source of information that we really drew heavily on are use cases. So we went out into the community and we asked experts from the research space, from the private sector, from governments, to send us real life case studies where they're using AI in their work. And so we had like a template that we asked them to fill out, and we received hundreds of these submissions. And over the course of our meetings, we discussed them. We discussed if they were scientifically sound, if they looked like they were mature enough to be used for coming up with best practices. And this was a place where we really got a lot of our insights into the methods that people were using. And so together, we then had working groups, and each working group had a different scope. So we have our working group that was looking at data-related topics. We had our working group that looked at the algorithm-related topics. And then we had our working group that looked more on like operational implementation of AI. And each group came up with guidelines based on both their expertise and these sources of information.
Okay, and you say, of course, it was successful, and they asked to renew essentially the efforts you are doing for the next few years. Did you, as a part of this position at IQ, how was the relationship, or how close you work also with non-scientists? What was your feedback on that?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't think that we would be able to do this work without doing it in an interdisciplinary way. I mean, the work that we're doing, it really bridges research, but also policy. We also work closely with stakeholders. So just to give an example, one of the things that we look a lot at within our community is the topic of human-centered AI. So, I mean, something that I've seen in my personal research, or just reading articles, I've also seen when I've applied for funding, is sometimes that link to the end user is missing. You'll see a really great AI-based system that can be used for all sorts of purposes, and it performs well and it looks great, but it's clear that no stakeholders or end users were part of that development or evaluation process. And so this is something that we've really championed, the importance of making sure that those end users are part of the development process from the very beginning. So, you can't come up with a best practice about that without talking to the end users to figure out, like, how do we better engage you in research? What do you need from researchers to, create a dialogue where you can share and receive information from each other? So, this is just one of those situations where, we've really had to create opportunities where all of the relevant parties were in a virtual room or in an on-site room and could really discuss it. And I think that this is really where the magic has happened, bringing those people together.
Okay, and So I was, you say you have a lot of initiative, event, you published report. Where did you see lots of people engaging with you? I mean, there was a specific, for example, part of the world, country, or sector which was particularly interested.
So there's like a couple of instances where I was
Mm.
really excited at the response.
Okay.
One of the first online webinars that we had, I mean, this was during the pandemic. So when we
Yeah.
started, it was like COVID. We knew that we were going to have to do a lot of stuff online, or pretty much everything online. And we had a workshop, an online workshop,
Mm.
and we had over 800 participants online. And I was like, wow, how are we going to manage all these people, or how are we going to keep them engaged, So, I mean, I just, it was really clear to me from then on that this is a topic that a lot of people are interested in. Also seeing, who was participating, from what countries
Yeah.
they were joining online. It was really exciting. And so, it's always been really important to both, me, but also my colleagues and our secretariat, that all of our activities have this remote option so that we're never excluding anyone who can't join us on site. So we've always tried to keep everything really open for those experts who, for whatever reason, can't be with us. So that event just kind of blew my mind, but of course raised the bar for every future event. Another activity that I was really excited about was our nature piece that we put out in 2024. For this, I worked really closely with our UN partners. And something that I've tried to advocate for, to my ability, is to bring the concept of standards to the public discourse. I think a lot of people see what companies are putting out there as tools. They get a lot of publicity when they, create a great AI-based forecast. They get the front page of the news. But the work that's being done in standards, I don't think necessarily gets the attention that it should. And I do think it's really critical if we want to be able to use AI in a safe way. So I was really excited to have our piece published in Nature and to see the response. So we were featured twice in Time Magazine for our work. We also were, featured in other news outlets. So for me, this was like a really amazing opportunity to show what we're doing. Sometimes a little bit behind the scenes, but nonetheless really important for fostering responsible AI and for helping countries around the globe develop policy on AI. And then the third really cool opportunity that we sort of had was we did an AI challenge, which our mutual colleague Lorenzo gets the credit for. We really wanted to find a way to reach AI developers and to see
Okay.
how familiar they were with the work that we're doing on standards. And so we worked with the AI for Good Summit. They have a platform for challenges. It's a partnership with Zindi. And Lorenzo had a great data set, landslide data from SAR and optical sources. And we made a challenge and said, here's the data, show us the best solution you can give us, which leverages the strengths of both sources of data to segment these landslides. And we didn't have a very big prize. It was 1,000 francs, but it was definitely, enough to get people excited. And we were really grateful to have that seed prize. And within several months, we had almost 1,000 submissions from 90 countries. So people from all over the world were submitting solutions to our challenge. And not only that, we asked the top 10 solutions to also give us some documentation about how they had linked with some of the best practices that we had described in our technical reports. And we used that in the evaluation of these solutions. And we were so excited by their interpretation of these best practices and thought that there were such important insights that we could get from this challenge that we ended up publishing the outcomes in Nature's NPJ Natural Hazards Journal in December. So that was just a great, let's say, kind of like off the cuff activity that we thought, we'll give it a try. And the returns were overwhelming.
And what's the vision now for this initiative? What do you want to do, or what you are planning to do for this next few years?
Great question. So underscoring all of our work are the standards. So what we're actively doing is revisiting the technical reports that we published in 2022 and 2023 as part of the focus group. We continue to adopt new use cases, so we constantly need to refresh these best practices. We're also looking at what the newest literature has been showing. So this is definitely, I would say, a major part of our work is just this revisiting the best practices, ensuring that they're relevant, comparing with, what we're seeing in the field. And then we're also doing deep dives. So as I mentioned, human-centered AI is something that we continue to look closely at. We're doing a seminar series right now that's looking at different approaches being taken within our community to foster this.
Okay. And so when do you, do you think, I don't know, that the next 5 years, 10 years, there would be like some of this work you have been doing will lead to, I don't know, some policy, or if that hasn't happened yet, what's your, let's say, ambition ideally? Where do you want this to?
Yeah, I mean, so we work with the member states. They participate in our meetings. The reports that we create are sent to them. So it's, of course, our hope that they will use it as a resource when they develop policy around the use of AI. We, of course, want to help them. We also want to help them harmonize with other countries. Like, this is really our goal. I've certainly noticed in the last years that there's definitely been more countries coming to us. Our last event, for example, was hosted by the European Commission in Brussels in December. So there's certainly, I can see that it's less about us, throwing our documents and begging people to use them. And I can see that there's more of like a mutual interest, and that, the Commission actually submitted a contribution to our last meeting about their perspectives. So these dialogues are just becoming stronger and stronger. And I think that that's really the best way to produce best practices. So to working directly with the member states.
And when is the next event? So we can do some updates.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to be organizing a workshop at the AI for Good Summit in Geneva in July, July. And we're going to try to co-locate it with a meeting. So I don't have the date of this yet, but the week of AI for Good Summit is already public and you can register online. So we will definitely be there, but I can't give the specifics yet of what it'll take the form.
And just to make also relevant to probably most of our audiences, in all of this, the role of Earth observation. So how important has been, what do you think, how and if will help you later on more and more?
Yeah, I mean, I think Earth observations it's a key source of data we use when we're working with AI in the context of disasters. So I don't see any way to get around it. I think that it's always going to be a really important source of data that we use. I think, particularly in combination with, in situ data sources, it just gives you a more complete picture of what's happening. And what I'm really excited about is these innovative sources of data that we, don't usually use as Earth observations, but that could provide these kinds of insights. So there's a group at the ITU. It's an ITU UNESCO IOC partnership, and they're looking at like smart cables, like submarine cables, and how they can be used for tsunami and earthquake and other purposes. So I think these, in combination with remote sensing data and traditional sources, it's just going to give us a better picture of what's happening around us. And of course, can be digested using AI-based algorithms.
So, and you say this position, this ITU initiative is a temporary one. even if has been renewed. Do you know, I mean, what will happen next in the way, or like it will, I don't know, you will still be there sharing it for long term, or I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, great question. So unlike the focus group where we, had a very clear maximum duration, the focus group, we certainly report to the member states. So as long as the member states deem our work relevant, I'm happy to stay in my position as chair. Granted that the rest of the initiative is happy with how things are going. So yeah, I mean, I don't see an end date. We certainly have more than enough work to do, and we're certainly happy to continue our work. And but yeah, I would say as long as we're adding value and supporting the member states and there's a need for us, I'm certainly available to continue in my position.
I want to close this part on the AI for good, and just to tell, if you can tell us more about your day-to-day job, like what is your they look like on average.
Okay, so a lot of phone calls. I feel like I'm constantly talking. Both checking in with the chairs of the different working groups that belong to our initiative, speaking with experts about the research that they're doing, trying to find ways for them to get involved with our work, also working on planning events. I'm also working on, presentations to do outreach about what we're doing, also working on papers. I try to be hands-on. I mean, I wouldn't be happy if I wasn't hands-on. So my biggest challenge is, having too many pots on the stove at the same time. But yeah, so I would say, yeah, my day is a mix between phone calls, writing, and yeah, I would say that's pretty much what it looks like.
Is just curious, commuting time, or how flexible is your working from home, and
so I'm actually in home office right now.
Okay.
So I don't know how I managed, but I managed to create like a very nice bubble around my office. Like everything that's necessary for me to survive is within walking distance or biking distance. So I have a very small radius within the city, which I love. So yesterday I was in the office. Tomorrow I'll go in the office to see colleagues. Today I have a lot of phone calls, so it just was more comfortable for me to just do them from home. But I do travel quite a lot. I would say where some people maybe commute really far every day, that's not something that I, struggle with, but rather sometimes I have like really a lot of back-to-back travel. And then I do have a family. And so, that's something I have to manage, but I luckily have a family that's really supportive of my work. As I mentioned, my husband is a geoscientist and is kind of familiar with what I'm doing. So yeah, so he takes over and holds down the fort when I'm away.
Okay, so do you get often the possibility to visit your family in North America, or?
So I wish that I was more often in the Boston area for work. I did go once to a meeting at MIT and got to spend time with them. That was great. Let's see, but I have family in Switzerland, and I'm very, very often in Geneva. So sometimes I try to, see if somebody can come to Geneva for the day and see me for a coffee. But no, they tend to be places that are not where my family is. But nonetheless, I enjoy seeing new places. So
it's priceless. It's priceless.
It's nice, right? The only thing that I would say that changed is pre-child traveling to exotic places. You could come back and you had a couple of days to get back on local time. It's not like that when you have a small child. When you come back from 23 hours of travel and you get woken up at 6 in the morning. It's just the way it is,
Just
So
one child.
I have one, but
Okay.
she feels like more sometimes.
No, I think it's must be hard.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
She brings a lot of joy, so.
Yeah, no, of course. So, Ulrich, I think with this, I think we can end our conversation chat. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And yeah, let me stop recording.